white. I keep it live cause I thrive. I might just blow your mind tonight. I'm so hyped, but it's no hype. From this height, it's direct hits on sight. I'm your type, lend me your ears to show you that there's something in me. I'm not giving up, I'm standing right here, holding these days hostage. And I'll make this my year. We turning fear into love, and the love's in the air. I love doing this cause nothing compares. Nothing can share that same type of feeling when you feeling them flares. They can't catch it, it's havoc. I rip to a tear, switch a scenario. My stereos, I leave them impaired. Variables start to change and they're all in my range. I just gotta grab it, it's all mathematics. Every step is drastic, I make it fantastic. I'm trying to take your breath away. Asthmatic.
This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo. This is live through the stereo. Go and let it blow, blow through the stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo, stereo.
Yeah, just nod your head with it, so explicit and vivid. Every image is intricate, intimate. I put my all into it, no scrimmage and no rules. I'm a pro tool, hear my heartbeat, beat into the vocals. I'm so loco, lost my mind, oh no. It's ponderoso, dope, so no overdose, cause it's dope, yo. Man, this is house grown, mixed with some milestones. So I let the style flow down like the Dow Jones, bringing it with some foul tones, letting the crowd know we getting loud, so it's eardrum rudiments. Yeah, we bring it rude again. Move, little hooligan. Music for tuning in, full time to the 10. I'm on my clock like I told you. I'm doing this for dreams we pursuing.
America, your quote-unquote democracy is for sale. Welcome back to the Anti-Media Radio, once again with your host, Nick Bernabe, here on UCY.tv and the antimedia.org/radio. I'm really happy to be back, and yes, I'm alive. I got a couple of messages from some of our loyal listeners, and I didn't die over the weekend, thank God. I didn't catch the same thing Hillary Clinton had, although I thought it was a possibility. That didn't happen. I'm alive and well, just a little under the weather on Monday.
Too much Zika cabeza.
Yeah, I got some Zika, a little side of Zika, a little side of pneumonia. But, luckily I got a strong immune system. I smoked like 2 pounds of weed and I'm good. Just kidding. But no, seriously, I was a little sick. But, thank you all for the messages. People want to know if we're going to be live tonight. Yes, we're going to be live, and we're really happy that everybody that listens to us, comes back and comes back for seconds the next week or the next episode. The Anti-Media Radio show is on 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We try to make every show every once in a while. Like on Monday, we don't get a chance to, air a live episode, but we'll play a rerun or something like that. That being said, I guess we kind of missed our 9/11 episode. Hopefully everyone enjoyed their weekend, and never forget that 3,000 people died on 9/11. Very tragic what happened, but also don't forget that our wars since then have caused a lot of damage and destruction around the world. I mean, very, very conservative estimates show that, a million Iraqi civilians have died since 9/11 thanks to U.S.-led intervention. Tens of thousands of Afghani civilians, and all the stuff that we've done using 9/11 as an excuse since 9/11 has created nothing but, massive amounts of chaos. I was going to save this story to talk about a little bit further on in the show, but you know what, since we missed our 9/11 show, let's go ahead and pull this up right now, because this is just a headline to remember. And I sent this over to you guys, all my guys on the panel. First, what am I doing, guys? I missed one show and I forgot to introduce the panel. Hold on a second. Got my longtime co-host, Schwartz, on the line. What's up, BB?
Hey, not much, Nick. Just watching, I think, one of the most blatant in-your-face whitewashes to distort reality as what's going on the ground with Hillary and her health I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I think the Reagan assassination attempt was successful in a lot of ways in that he came back a shell of himself, or they replaced him. And I mean, it looks like the same thing happened with her her miraculously being healthy in 90 minutes. I felt like we are.
Oh, we lost DB there. Said a little too much. What does DB know about Hillary Clinton?
Watching Wag the Dog or whatever.
There you go. You're back. Sorry, we lost our connection there, man. I was like, shit, did Hillary Clinton get to DB over there in Minnesota? Or?
Yeah, she got to me, dude.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it's crazy what went on over there. We're going to get into that in depth in a few minutes. I want to go over this other story real quick on 9/11 because I don't want to spend too much time on 9/11. It's already a few days old, and God, the media reinvokes 9/11 for every single foreign policy issue out there, and the terrorists are going to get you, Iran is going to get you, the Muslims are going to get you. I mean, you name it, and the politicians and the media are going to stoke it up. Whatever they can use to justify hideous war things that go on with our wars overseas and stuff, they're going to use it. Also joining us tonight is the infamous Jake Anderson. What's up, Jake?
Oh, not much. Am I infamous?
You are infamous now.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking at the Guccifer 2.0. I love that name, by the way, Guccifer. I'm really jealous. I wish that was my name.
So do you think it's Guccifer or do you think it's Guccifer?
I don't know.
Lucifer?
Gucci? I don't know. But
like Lucifer mixed with Gucci, right?
I think isn't it a play on Lucifer?
That's what I'm thinking.
It's Guccifer.
All right, Gucci. Yeah. Either way, there's the new DNC leak that goes far beyond Hillary this time, and I'm sure you're going to want to talk about this later. But this new leak is, inferring a pay-for-play ambassadorship, possible insider trading with the DNC, just a bevy of possible criminality crimes going on. I mean, the right is going to have an absolute field day. Provided Hillary gets into office, it's just going to be a nonstop witch hunt. I mean, it's going to be, and this time they actually have real shit to work with. I mean, it's not just a cum stain on a dress. They're actually going to have like major crimes to work with.
You would think, but I mean, I've been looking at a drugs report all day because I've been waiting for them to cover something on this Guccifer leak, which for those that aren't aware of it, because like I'm about to explain, it hasn't really been covered in the mainstream media at all, not even in the right-wing media.
Yeah, Breitbart and InfoWars haven't barely touched it either. I don't understand what's going on.
Exactly, and that's, to me, that's the really odd thing here. I mean, this is a major, catastrophic leak against the Democratic Party.
I think it's almost too big, man. I think if what this is saying is true, I mean, I think it probably goes across the board. Just the same way with war crimes, I don't think the right wants to take that on because it's going to get them too.
Exactly, and I think that's probably why this is not being covered at all. Even by the typically, Drudge will latch on to any minor thing about Hillary Clinton. They've been harping on this health thing for months and months and months before even there was now we're getting these really major signs. Her health is really messed up. But before that, I mean, Breitbart would latch on to any little coughing fit she would have and stuff, and it's like this huge thing over there. And on Drudge as well, but on this Guccifer leak, which really kind of, in my opinion, really shakes the foundations of the entire Democratic Party. You'd think the right-wing media would be jumping all over this thing, but like you were saying, possibly the reason that they're not is because it crosses the aisle, and the Republicans are probably guilty of the same exact thing. We're going to get into that. First, let's touch on this, back to 9/11, before I forget. Best headline so far, in my opinion, out of the anti-media, best and worst, because, working on this headline, I actually got really sad. And, typically I try to disconnect myself from the news and not let it really affect me emotionally and stuff. Every now and then, certain stories will get to you and stuff like that. But, as kind of an analyst, and I guess we're kind of alternate media pundits at this point, I try to, not let these things personally affect me too much. But headline out of the anti-media today, the U.S. war on terror has cost $5 trillion and increased terrorism by 6,500%. Now, this is just something that it's just completely Orwellian. So, after 9/11, all of this kind of nationalistic, patriotic fervor was stoked up, and, American flags flying on every goalpost, and everybody standing up for the national anthem, and, all of a sudden, in 2009, all of a sudden it's like mandated that the players have to stand up for the national anthem in the NFL, and, coincidentally that coincided with a huge $5-point-something million payment from the government to the NFL to help promote the military. So I'm sure that has nothing to do with it. But this is just so Orwellian because since 9/11 we've been waging war all around the world. I mean, we've got troops, we've got counterterrorism operations from the Philippines all the way to Eastern Europe and all over the Middle East. We all know that. I mean, we have military bases in roughly 100 countries. We've got 1,000 U.S. Government installations outside of the United States, and all of this stuff is supposedly done, at least at this time, to stop terrorism and curtail terrorism, to wage a war against terror. Of course, before 9/11 and during the Cold War, it was the boogeyman at that time was communism, and we had all those bases, and we had all this foreign policy because we were trying to stop communism. But, terrorism kind of just replaced communism ever since that threat went away. The USSR collapsed, and that kind of became a non-issue. Terrorism really stepped in and filled the void for the military-industrial complex. And so we spent $5 trillion, and this isn't just on military spending. I mean, this also includes, the Veterans Affairs. It includes the Homeland Security, Department of State, of course, the DOD, all the other things that are involved in keeping up this war on terror, taking care of all the veterans that went and fought over in Iraq and Afghanistan, and that's those are bills that we're going to have to be paying for decades because a lot of these guys, like people that I personally know have been affected by it, now have PTSD and are like permanently disabled for the rest of their lives. Taxpayers are going to have to be taking care of them because they were messed up in these wars and stuff like that. So this includes all those costs, and these costs are going to continue on, and they're going to get bigger and bigger over time. So $5 trillion. I mean, that's huge. It's a huge amount. I mean, what was DB? Do you remember the amount that they recently were they lost track of over at the Pentagon? It was something in the trillions as well.
2.3 trillion, right?
There you go. Yeah, I mean they've been losing track of all kinds of money, but now we have a paper trail on this $5 trillion.
0.5 trillion, which makes but it was over decades and decades. It's basically been since the end of World War II, and their excuse was, well, it was the Cold War, and we just lost track. I'm like, yeah, right, man. I mean, they probably built an entire world underground with that kind of money.
There's no what they go ahead.
Or maybe it paid for a particularly notorious day itself.
Yeah, who knows? Or maybe all that money went to go create Hillary's robotic stunt double. No, I'm just kidding. Now here's the thing that really makes me really mad and really sad, and this is what really got to me, is that, prior to 9/11, there was actually, there was no recorded suicide attacks in Iraq. They hadn't recorded one suicide attack in Iraq prior to 9/11. After U.S. intervention, there's now been, coming up on 2,000 suicide attacks in Iraq. And there was just a declassified FBI report. I haven't got a chance to read it yet, but I just saw it in passing that talked about how, U.S. intervention is really is probably the major driving factor behind stirring up terrorism, causing terrorism.
So, when you say something like that, Nick, that makes me realize the way we went about Iraq invading it was completely opposite and contrary to actually winning a war, which would have been just to arm the people here or there and let them take out Saddam. Because if they weren't killing themselves under Saddam's rule, but they are under our occupation, I mean, how horrid has it been for them?
It's really, really bad. And, part of that as well was actually engineered by some of these people in the CIA. They actually tried to create sectarian violence in Iraq as a form of divide and conquer. So, what better way to go in and neutralize a country You know, if you're going to go overthrow their government, but you don't want to have some kind of popular resistance to your occupation, right? So the way the CIA looked at it was like, well, look, they've got these two major competing religious groups, the Sunni and the Shia, which are both Muslim. What about, you know, here's a good idea. Why don't we turn them against each other? You know, blame one group or the other for different attacks and different atrocities until they hate each other and they want to kill each other. And the more they want to kill each other, the less they can focus on killing us. And you know, this stuff has been documented in Iraq, and this is part of the policy that was undertaken covertly over there, was divide and conquer. Really sad how that happened, but it worked. And a bunch of people over there now are killing each other. And we're led to believe that, oh, you know, those Muslims, they've been killing each other for 1,500 years. That, you know, that's just how they are. That's what we're led to believe, but that's not the case. I mean, it wasn't like that before 9/11. It just wasn't. You know, we stirred that up. Whether, you know, with these covert actions that they did it on purpose, or whether it's just a side effect from our occupation and our invasion and the war on terror, you know, that's you know, we don't know how much of a percentage is causing it or what. But I'm telling you, I mean, this kind of stuff was purposely done, you know, and so we got to be, you know, very wary about what our government, you know, gets involved in around the world, because there's all kinds of side effects and blowback and stuff. And so terrorism before 9/11 was, you know, it was an issue, but it wasn't like a big issue. We weren't having terrorist attacks multiple times a year in the United States. It wasn't like a huge national security risk or anything like that. But ever since 9/11 and all of these wars, I mean, terrorism has skyrocketed. And most of the acts of terror are committed in Muslim countries. Most of the victims of terrorism are in Iraq. They're in Syria. They're in Muslim majority countries. And so, you know, that's the other sad part, is that all of these innocent Muslim people in the Middle East are dying because the U.S. decided that we were going to go knock over a bunch of countries over there and do what we wanted with their resources and tell them how to govern themselves and tell them what to do. And because of that, millions upon millions of innocent people are dying now and have died because of it. And if you want to look for a ripe example of what's going on, I mean, look at Libya, look at Syria right now, right this instant. You know, now the estimates are up to 400,000 people dead in Syria. Can't blame the entire thing on the United States and our foreign policy, but, you know, we're fueling that civil war. We helped create the prospects for the civil war to begin with, the propaganda, the dissemination, the funding of opposition groups, and we immediately started arming the opposition as soon as any kind of civil unrest popped off in Syria. I mean, so we're very much responsible for it. And and this is what really breaks my heart here, is that as a U.S. resident and a person that goes to the store and buys stuff and eats at restaurants and reluctantly pays taxes, I'm partially responsible for this. I'm paying for it. I'm financing these atrocities around the world, and that's what really makes me sad, man. And that's what really is the worst part of it. It's easy to sit back and, being the critics that we are, and we criticize the foreign policy every episode. We criticize the government every episode, the police state, the police brutality, the inequality, all this horrible things happening, going on to the working class in the United States. We sit here and we criticize it every week. But at the same time, we're paying for it, you know? And as much as you try to do counter economics and, you know, deal in cash, do trades, barter, do cryptocurrencies, one way or another, they get you. You pay taxes, you go to the restaurant, you buy a beer at the corner store, you go buy a pack of cigarettes, you buy gas for your car.
Well, isn't the police...
You're paying for it.
Isn't the police state just going to be the forced consent of these taxations and these fines? I mean, that's what they're going to do. That's what they're setting up. They realize people want to opt out and get off grid and have an alternative to the tyranny. And they're setting up to make that not a reality unless you're kind of like way out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and even that they're clamping down on. I mean, some of these states, it's like really, really hard to get off grid, like in Florida and Arizona. They want to tax I think it was Arizona, they want to tax your wind. Like people that generate wind electricity, they want to tax you on that. I mean, they're trying to make it really hard for people to get completely off the government control grid. And, you know, these guys are control freaks. The government we've got
is made up of a bunch of control freaks that have a bunch of rules for us. But as we're going to talk about shortly, they have a bunch of rules that they're supposed to follow as well, but they don't. It really makes me sick that all this stuff is going on with our money being financing it, and it's being done in our name. And the thing that makes me even more upset is that, we posted this article today, and I mean, look at this damn headline. You would think that people would read this, and it's like, yeah, this is something that everybody needs to know. The war on terror cost $5 trillion, and the only thing that we've accomplished is increasing terrorism by 6,500%. You would think that's a headline that is going to go viral, but it didn't. 2,500 shares on Facebook. I mean, the saddest part of it all is that this shit's going on, and people, you know what they care about? Colin Kaepernick. That's what they care about. That's what really is like, Jesus Christ, dude. Are we really going to make an issue out of Colin Kaepernick? And by all means, we've defended Colin Kaepernick, and he's doing a good job, but these other horrible things going on, and everybody's like, whatever, who gives a shit? Let's just turn on the football, and, that's cool. I like football too, but come on, dude. We got to start giving a shit before the entire world starts declaring war on us because we're destroying the entire place. I mean, that's what's going to happen if we don't change our ways in very soon. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight, but in a couple decades from now, everyone in the world's going to hate us if we keep it up. And it's not going to be a safe place for us and for our kids and for future generations. And, we talk about this recently on the show. And we're not in a World War I situation, a World War II situation where, maybe a couple million people die. I mean, these lunatics at the helm right now have the potential to destroy the entire earth with nuclear weapons and other horrible weapons. I mean, we're not in a place right now where we can sit back and just be like, it sucks that those damn Republicans and those no, we can no longer sit back, idly and just allow this shit to happen. And that's why I'm so hyped up about what's going on in North Dakota with the Native American tribes standing up to this pipeline. They're taking action, and that's what needs to that's what needs to happen very soon. Otherwise, I mean, everyone's going to be sitting back, and we're going to be bitter, and people are going to watch Fox News, and blame the Democrats, and people are going to be reading Huffington Post and blaming the Republicans, and they're just going to sit back while this whole shit keeps steamrolling on. I mean, we can no longer, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable for our lives, for our future, for our family, our friends. We're going to be leading into a dark place if people don't start really acting on their feelings right now. Because look, I just saw a huge headline today. Mainstream media reaches lowest point ever. I mean, the fewest amount of people, the fewest percentage of people in the United States trust the mainstream media now. Okay, 9% of people have a approval rating of the Congress. Only Trump and Hillary have the lowest approval ratings of any presidential candidates since polling began. I mean, everybody's kind of in agreement here. Yeah, this is a really fucked up situation, right? Nobody's acting on it. Nobody's acting on it except for a couple of Native American tribes up in North Dakota. I mean,
you know what's going to unite everyone? This is my prediction. I wrote about it in one article. I think the hacking and leaks, I think that's what's going to endear the state back to everyone. I think that's what people are going to be forced to trust the government again, because what's going to happen is there will be some hacks, people's social security numbers will be leaked, some corporations will get taken down, some small businesses will get all effed up, and basically there will be a full-on war on hacktivism and leaking and stuff like that. And think about it, it's the next ubiquitous war. Like terrorism, you can't stop leaks and hacking. Anonymous is everywhere. That's just my theory on what's going to unite, what the government's going to use to get people to trust them again.
Yeah, because after 9/11, I think the government approval ratings went like through the roof. They went up to the highest point they had been since a long time, because they were able to blindly pull the veil over people's eyes and just say, look, guys, we're going to protect you, even though we couldn't protect you from 9/11. Trust us. We'll do our jobs, and we're going to keep you guys safe by going and starting a bunch of wars in the Middle East with people that had nothing to do with what happened. Apparently, that was the plan, and according to the Bush doctrine, it worked, I guess.
Weird.
Well, who's going to be the next fall guy for the next hack is going to be Iran when they collapse the economic system.
I wouldn't doubt it, especially if Clinton's in power. I mean, she's been a longtime foe of Iran, and Iran is really the last strong geopolitical chess piece left in the Middle East that hasn't fallen under U.S. influence. And they're notoriously close to Russia, and they're notoriously close to China, which is anyone who's been paying attention will tell you that these are the new alliances that are kind of popping up: the Russia, China, Iran, North Korea alliance, and maybe even the BRICS nations. We see the U.S. going into Brazil and trying to socially engineer their government.
They did. Yeah. They overthrew her. I mean, they just performed a coup. They pulled it off right after the Olympics. That was the way they made a smokescreen down there.
Yeah, use the Olympics as the big distraction down there, huh? So on that topic, before we go on, one thing I wanted to mention, because there was a separate set of leaks that came out regarding someone hacked into Colin Powell's email conversations, and they leaked a bunch of his stuff, and some juicy stuff came out of that. One thing that has gone kind of underreported was how Colin Powell basically was talking about Brexit and how awesome it was because it was a distraction from the Chilcot hearings. The Chilcot hearings was this big hearing over in Britain that was looking into what went on with the British backing of the war in Iraq and stuff like that. And, Tony Blair came under the knife and, he got a slap on the wrist. But, yeah, they basically said Tony Blair was just as bad as Bush in many ways when it came to the British backing of the war in Iraq. But Colin Powell was like, yeah, I'm glad the Brexit is going on because, if it weren't for that, people would be paying attention to this Chilcot hearing and they'd be looking at all these mistakes that were made in the war in Iraq. So, that's one interesting thing that came out of the email. Another interesting thing that came out of British foreign policy just the last day or two was, now I'm having trouble remembering the guy's name. Who was the British Prime Minister that just stepped down? David Cameron, right?
You mean good old pig fucker?
Yeah, the pig fucker.
Yeah.
They were talking about how David Cameron really botched up the overthrow in Libya and how that should have never happened and how they were relying. They basically built up their entire propaganda campaign on Libya based on Gaddafi rhetoric, which was he said stuff that he hadn't actually done. Or wasn't even going to do, and they based their entire propaganda campaign on, starting that or overthrowing his government on some bogus rhetoric and bogus intel and stuff like that. And so, the David Cameron, now he just finally stepped down like a couple days ago, and so now that he's out, they're like, oh yeah, David Cameron messed up in Libya. It would have been nice if these guys would have done that like maybe before we went into Libya. That's the problem with all these hearings and with all these investigations. It's like after the fact. Where was the media back on in the days following 9/11, the years leading up to the Iraq War, when they were making excuses for Bush, when they were telling everybody, we got to go and Saddam Hussein is going to, blow up New York City or whatever it is, all the bullshit they sold us on that. Where was the investigation then? That's the problem. Yeah, there was probably a handful of journalists out there, maybe like someone like Bill Hicks or somebody out there like saying, hey, you guys, don't believe the bullshit, and unfortunately that's like what we're doing right now, and I wish more people were listening, but we need to investigate this stuff before this stuff happens, like before we destroy Libya, before we destroy Syria, before we destroy Iraq, before
no one cares. Like you were saying, people like they know this stuff is happening, but they just, I don't know. It's like this giant psyop has occurred, and there's so much cognitive dissonance. People, they know this stuff is happening, and they just have chosen to not care because it's easier to not care.
It really is, and that's the sad part. But you know what? Eventually, you're going to be forced to care, and that's when the day of reckoning is going to come for a bunch of people that really, right now, like you said, people don't give a shit. Some people don't give a shit. Some people don't know what the hell is going on, and they're going to be having a rude awakening. And at that time, it's not going to be a fun time for me. But you know what? At least the people that I know, the people that are listening to this show, the people that regularly read the anti-media and follow us on Facebook and stuff, I think the people that are, part of our following are going to be a lot better of a situation when the day of reckoning comes, and it's the time for making hard decisions is going to be upon us. We're going to be in a better place because we're going to be knowing what's going on and what has happened, and we're going to know our history and what to expect in the future from certain actions and decisions. And maybe I'm too pessimistic about this. Maybe that's why I confused Bush and Clinton there. Maybe that's why Clinton and Trump have such low approval ratings, because people are already seeing through the facade. Maybe they're just not pushed to that point where they're ready for action yet, but maybe they're already seeing through it. I mean, who knows? So it's a good question. So
the thing that could maybe spur some action would be if they tried something stupid like initiating a draft, and especially taking advantage of this little side thing they put in with the women being drafted too. Are Americans going to allow their daughters, let alone their sons, to be unwillingly thrown into a meat grinder that is the Middle East against Russia and China and Iran, and assume that they're not going to be coming home? I mean, I don't know, man. Are we at that cognitive dissonance point where we will sacrifice the next generation, however many millions of them it takes, to stay just a little bit on top of the other two?
I don't think they'll let that happen. I think the government knows that would be, as incompetent as the government is, they're very, very intelligent about manipulating the hell out of us, and I think they know that a draft would not go well.
I just wonder why they put the new provision in, if they're going to do it at all. I mean, is that a little psyop in itself?
It's for feminism, bro.
Yeah, it is. It's the same reason that they let gays start serving. It's just it's like I post on Facebook today the definition of neoliberalism, which is the idea that it's fine for the global corporate wealthy to conquer and dismantle our democracy and oppress the working class as long as we get to keep abortion and gay marriage. They use these little wedge issues to keep people at bay while they're doing their little imperial colony building.
Exactly.
We need to reprogram people to realize they have natural rights. These are not given by any government. They're just what's expected out of other human beings from other human beings, or else we kill you.
Exactly.
That was the whole threat. That was society's agreement. That was how things were kept in place. If you didn't respect me enough as a human being to leave me alone if I wasn't hurting you, I had the right to kill you to make you go away.
I mean, it goes back to this idea of natural rights and natural law, where you don't need a hierarchy or an authority to enforce them. You kind of, it's just something that it's just common sense. It just makes ethical and moral sense. These kind of basic natural laws, but it's been convoluted to the extreme. Anyway, going back to let's get on this email stuff. And I know Jake was digging through this stuff all day today. A lot of crap to go through. The first point I want to bring up, and this is from an article we posted today on the Anti-Media by Josie Wales. We're going to try to get her on the radio show sometime soon. She's a huge personality within the quote-unquote liberty movement, and she's been working with us. Really brilliant woman. Her articles, her philosophy, her videos and stuff, enough gushing over her. Anyway, the interesting thing here, a tweet from yesterday, which was a statement. Well, the tweet comes out of WikiLeaks, but it was a statement from the DNC. And this went out yesterday from interim DNC chairwoman Donna Brazil. Now, keep in mind, the reason they have an interim DNC chairwoman is because the last batch of WikiLeaks kind of dethroned the previous chairwoman, which was Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who immediately was hired by the Hillary Clinton campaign, who is now working for Hillary Clinton. Anyway, we all know about Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She's a real piece of work, real corrupt, crappy oligarch that really helped screw Bernie Sanders out of the election. and sat there and did plenty of interviews and bold-faced lied and said, no, we're treating everybody the same. And, we all found out that was bullshit. That's why she had to resign. Anyway, that being said, the new chairwoman issued a statement yesterday, preemptively before the WikiLeaks dump came out. Quote, "The DNC is the victim of a crime, an illegal cyber attack by Russian state-sponsored agents who seek to harm the Democratic Party and progressive groups in an effort to influence the presidential election." There's a person who stands to benefit from these acts, and it's Donald Trump. Not only has Trump embraced Putin, he publicly encouraged further Russian espionage to help his campaign. Like so many words Trump has uttered this election season, his statements encouraging cybercrime are dangerous, divisive, and unprecedented.
They're so unbelievable. Didn't you say that they also encourage people to not look at the leak because it could give them a virus?
Someone,
yes,
these officials was like, nobody look at these leaks because they're bad.
These leaks and Tor can give your
Yeah.
I swear Hillary keeps getting a DB over there, man. He keeps cutting out.
computer a virus.
There you go. Okay, second paragraph. We have been anticipating that an additional batch of documents stolen by Russian agents would be released. Our legal team is now in the process of reviewing these private documents and attempting to confirm their authenticity, as it is common for Russian hackers to forge documents. We would urge anyone attempting to access these documents to proceed with extreme caution given the potential malware risks.
God.
Oh, man. So, all right. So, first of all, before we get into the contents of these leaks, the Democratic National Party is outright stating that it was done by Russian government hackers. This is a false statement. This is a lie, because though many people have said we think it might have been Russian state-sponsored actors, there's zero proof that it has actually been Russian state-sponsored actors. In fact, the individual who takes credit for all of these leaks is the Romanian hacker Guccifer 2.0, who we briefly mentioned at the beginning of the show. Now, do I completely doubt that Russia was behind these hacks? No, I think there's a good possibility that they were. Who knows? But according to what Edward Snowden was saying, according to what the NSA and their tools that they have, the NSA would know exactly whether it was Russian hackers or not, and they would have already concluded that it was. And so, therefore, there's a very good chance that it was not Russian hackers, and the DNC is literally lying about these leaks in order to try to deflect from the contents of the leaks to try to instead create the controversy that it's Russia interfering with our elections. Anyway, with that being said, Jake, I want to go over to you because I know you were looking at these leaks earlier today, and tell us a little bit about what you learned, because, you know, the other thing, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, this stuff is not being talked about by the media at all. I mean, the cool thing was today on Facebook, Guccifer 2.0 was the #1 trending topic, and we were able to get our article posted in time, and we were actually the #1 article. If you clicked on the trending topic, it was ours. So, like, this information was getting out there, even though it's not getting out there in the mainstream media. But, you know, Jake, tell us a little bit about the leaks and what you found kind of most concerning about the content.
Well, I mean, I tried to go through as many of them as I could. I really couldn't understand a lot of it. It's like being thrown into the middle of like an alien conversation and having to try and figure out what's being said, because it's a lot of coded language. But you know, it was 678 megabytes of new DNC documents, and it looks like the first correlation that was kind of pointed out. And yeah, I mean, like you said, no one's going over this stuff in the media. So this is just like this giant Watergate level, event that is just not even being assessed by the media at all. And so you just have, what are probably thousands of lawyers and private citizens behind the scenes right now pouring over these things, looking for, what they can. It's just absolutely the quintessence of a media conspiracy. Like, like Gibson said earlier, like if you needed any proof that the media and the administration were in bed together, this is it. That they're not reporting on this at all.
Because
and in fact,
this not only does it reflect bad on Hillary Clinton, and just because she's a Democratic nominee, I mean, a lot of it isn't actually harming Clinton that much, but a lot of it goes back to Obama in many ways too.
Yeah, there's a lot of there's like correlations between like people that donors, government donors who were then given pretty high level positions like ambassadorships, undersecretary positions, and I don't know, as Josie was saying or said earlier to me, is that doesn't necessarily constitute a crime. That surprised the hell out of me, actually, but pay to play isn't inherently criminal. So there's going to be a huge gray zone here. I think the most entertaining part of it was definitely the Powell emails, with her, with Powell, saying that, Hillary didn't look well, making some comment about, Bill Clinton having sex, and then saying something about, like, I mean, conspiracy theorists will love this one, but he said something like, "Hey, just got back from Bohemian Grove. It sounds like no one there is going to go for Trump. Some of them may even go third party." I don't. It's weird that Powell's casually talking about Bohemian Grove.
That's crazy. I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, it's. I think I shared it in the our little chat. But yeah, it's super weird. There's so much stuff in there that they're still trying to figure out. But
this first guy, and he's at the top of the list in the tweet that we put in the article from this guy named Zach Haller, and he's a Bernie Sanders activist, and he's been pretty on top of tweeting out the information that's been getting combed out of these leaks. But the guy at the top of the list who donated the most money is a man named Matthew Barzin. And he raised $3.5 million for the DNC and Obama's nonprofit, which is for political stuff, Organizing for Action. He raised $3.5 million, and then he was assigned ambassador first to Sweden, which, okay, Sweden, no big deal. But then he was named ambassador to the UK, which is arguably probably one of the most powerful foreign kind of positions outside of the United States within the government. That's a very, very powerful position, ambassador to the United Kingdom, because the UK is one of our largest partners when it comes to almost everything: military, trade, diplomacy, foreign policy. I mean, this guy raised a ton of money for the Democrats, and then they said, "Okay, buddy, now you're the ambassador to the United Kingdom."
Yeah, and the second highest guy, Julius Genachowski, or whatever that is, he paid just about $3.5 million, and then he became the chairman of the FCC for 4 years, and that's a pretty big spot too. I mean that's the crossing guard of our communications basically, and what passes there. So. Yeah, it's super problematic. I mean, there's no way anyone could look at this and not be incredibly disturbed. I mean, it almost feels like this is like a secret memo of the deep state that we weren't supposed to see. I mean, it's just basically like a receipt. It's just like a receipt of how private industry is paying their way into government.
Exactly.
And the RNC cannot jump on this because, like has already been mentioned earlier, it will cross the aisle. It'll, in fact, take down the entire government because they're all entangled in the Clinton Foundation.
Right.
And so one of the things that I found intriguing today was some member of Congress was up there, and he was talking about the leak. I think it was actually yesterday. And he said, the RNC has been hacked too. And so this kind of reinforces what we're saying here, and this is why the Republicans are not jumping on this. I mean, in a political vacuum, we look at this thing and we're like, this is a Hail Mary for the Republicans. They're going to lose their majority. They're going to gain the majority in the Senate. They're going to solidify their majority in the House. They're going to win the presidency. It's going to be a clean sweep with this information, right? But the Republicans are completely silent on this. And everybody's, at least for me, I'm wondering why. And it's because the RNC was hacked too. And this information can just as likely come out against the RNC and make them look just as bad. And so this stuff goes across political aisles. I mean, both parties are just literally selling influence. I mean, if anything, this is not an indictment so much of just the Democratic Party. It's the whole government, dude. They're just buying and selling influence everywhere they want, telling us that they're giving us freedom, telling us that we're voting for a choice. And in the end, you know, a bunch of these unelected bureaucrats that are appointed by the political parties, by Obama, by the presidents, and who else, you know, who knows who else. The third highest paying person, Frank Sanchez, was appointed Undersecretary of Commerce, another hugely influential position. And, you know, who knows the countless millions, not even millions, billions and billions of dollars of decision making these people could have influenced. I mean, the chairman of the FCC, billions of dollars of decision making, and all the guy had to raise was $3.5 million bucks. There was an old infographic that we covered a long time ago on the Anti-Media about how investing in government is actually, you know, economically speaking, one of the best investments you could make. I mean, exponential returns on investment over there. But you know, this is just an example. You pay $3.5 million bucks to become Undersecretary of Commerce. You can help your buddies in the business world make billions, if not more. And the chairman of the FCC, same thing. Ambassadorships. I mean, military industrial contractors will love a guy like that, to a friend of theirs, to be an ambassador to the United Kingdom. I mean,
so you're telling me we need to group fund our own bribes then?
Oh man, yeah.
Dude,
it's our own government.
There's some other possible criminal stuff in here. I mean, there's you
Let's
know,
talk about the insider trading. You mentioned a little bit about that earlier.
Right. Well, I mean, there's nothing concrete yet, but basically, I was looking at it earlier, and I was like, there's a folder in here that just says CNBC. And I was like, okay, I'm immediately going and looking at that because that's just weird. And it looks like basically it's just a bunch of stock information, which, you know, it's kind of weird. I mean, that's in there. I mean, you just have to remember everything that's in this leak is there for a reason. They put it in there for a reason. They're not just going to leak a carrot cake recipe. They're leaking stuff because they found out there was criminality there and they're leaking it. So this stock thing is extremely weird because it looks like the DNC was trading stocks on certain earning days in 2011, in which those were days that the stock prices were moving. And it looks like, there's basically they're trying to cross-reference some of these companies and see who was, investing at the same time. And DB, you'll like this one. It looks like DNC is starting a national person database. I don't know what the hell that is. And, okay, one more thing. DNC may have invested in Smith & Wesson's earnings in the third quarter of 2011. That's right when Obama brought in a new gun control law. Pike Electric received a contract from a Clinton-chaired MCC for $17.9 million in 2011. One document specifies a state swap program, so it's basically allowing a DNC API to exchange and update data between states' voter rolls twice. You see, some of this stuff it's really hard to. We don't know exactly how corrupt it is yet, but there's just a ton of stuff in here. I mean, and it looks like there was a voter purge. We may be able to figure out how Bernie Sanders' voters got removed from those voter rolls and their party affiliation switch. Because basically the DNC paid for this voter purge, which is how voters are targeted and registrations are switched, and how their voters are made invalid due to changes in an automated system. The Democrats bought into that system, and basically bought the API into it. And so that we may be able to explain that Bernie. I mean, it's so corrupt at this point that I don't even think anyone can touch this right now. I mean, I think anyone in power who tried to pursue this would die in a plane crash. And I'm not even sure if the same thing wouldn't happen to any journalist. I mean, this is bigger than Watergate, dude. This is like Watergate times 1,000, because it's tons of different Watergates going on, and it's not just it's not one party spying on another. It's an entire financial institution in bed with our government, and it's just nuts, man. It's nuts.
It's ridiculous. And like you said, it's the size of Watergate. Yet you go over to Huffington Post, which is the flagship liberal news outlet, and it's about Donald Trump on the Dr. Oz show. That's Huffington Post.
Huffington Post is the biggest. They are just pure propaganda now. That's it.
Bill Clinton on Drudge Report. It's Bill Clinton and how he's no longer as awesome as a surrogate for Hillary Clinton. I mean, this is these are the people that establish the media narratives outside of the Associated Press, and they're talking about Dr. Oz and how Bill Clinton is washed up. I mean, This is it. So the question remains: is can the independent researchers and the independent media, and hopefully we play a part in this, are we going to be able to dig up enough dirt on this leak to make it have a impact on the status quo? Because that's the main thing. I mean, at this point, I don't think we're going to be able to derail either Trump or Clinton. One of these two jokers are going to be president. But the more important thing here is to really get into the people's minds that there's something deeply wrong with the entire political system of the United States that is in need of deep overhaul. And coming from my perspective, I'm way beyond the reform mindset here, but at the very least, I mean, the corruption is so deep, and the manipulation of the elections, whether it's with Bernie Sanders or whether it's against all these third-party candidates that are going to be left out of the debates, or whether it's just this huge glass ceiling that is placed on all the independent candidates where they have to get huge numbers of petitions to try to just get on the ballots. I mean, Jill Stein, as popular as she is, she's not even on all 50 ballots in every state. She's not even on the ballot in every state. Gary Johnson barely got certified just today that he's on all 50 states. I mean, it's a huge a hoop to jump through just to get on the ballot. And so this system is in such need of reform and complete overhaul, and dare I say revolution. But it's not going to be led by these deeply embedded mainstream media outlets that are literally ignoring this huge scandal that should be bringing down entire parts of the government and causing overnight reforms. Media is not touching it. I mean, they just seem to be completely uninterested in talking about any of this stuff. It's crazy.
Well, they can't. They don't want to self-incriminate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I kind of want to write up a summary of this, because the site that this is coming from is called Conservative Outfitters. I don't want to share that.
No. Yeah, I mean, it's just so ridiculous, man. And you know what? CNN reported that there appears to be no damaging emails in this batch of leaks. Maybe because it wasn't really about the emails so much this time around.
There's nothing but great stock advice in there, Nick. I mean, they're doing us a favor.
Yeah, seriously. Those damn Russians. But also the way that, going back to the way that the DNC tried to preempt this leak, it really does go to show how the new boogeyman is, well, I guess the renewed boogeyman is Russia once again, because of course it was Russia during the Cold War and all that. But the Democrats are really trying to position themselves as the strong party against Russia and Russian influence and stuff. But I don't know where they get their internal polling or where they do their internal polling. But from what I've seen, I mean, it almost seems like Vladimir Putin is a more popular figure than Hillary Clinton or Trump. I mean, Putin is seen by many people in the United States, especially people on the right, as some kind of, strong, benevolent leader that does right by his people.
He's the alt-right darling.
Yeah, and it's actually kind of true because people in the United States, they like Putin. They do, and the Democrats, the DNC and Hillary going off on this anti-Putin, anti-Russian tangent, I don't see it going anywhere because the people are like, what are you talking about? Putin's awesome. You know what I mean? And, we all know Putin is not a good guy. I mean, he's a ruthless former KGB pseudo-dictator over in Russia. And, they are horrible on civil liberties, horrible on press freedom, horrible on homosexuality, horrible on a lot of things over there in Russia. But you know what? Russia, for now, isn't really our problem. I think our bigger problem here in the United States is dealing with our own corrupt system that is on the verge of not only being morally bankrupt, with, guess not on the verge, it's already there, but it's also on the verge of dragging the entire world into a big conflict, and that's something that we really can't afford to risk. Because, if we were in good standing and our government was completely benevolent, not corrupt, completely transparent, fully democratic, and they found something around the world where it's like, we need to go right this wrong, maybe I would, in a perfect world, maybe I'd say, you know what, yeah, we shouldn't be allowing Saudi Arabia to kill protesters for standing up against the government. Maybe we shouldn't be allowing Israel to go genocide against the Palestinians. Maybe that's something that we should stand up to. But in the current state of affairs, that's just not the case. I mean, we can't trust our government to tell us the truth about very much. I mean, they can't even tell us when our presidential candidates have pneumonia. They can't even tell us that much. You know what I'm saying? Like, how can we trust them to tell us we need to go start a war with Russia, Iran, and China when they can't even tell us the goddamn truth about our own presidential candidates? Can't even tell us that. I mean, we've got a bunch of problems here that we need to deal with first before the United States can once again assert its moral high ground around anybody around the world and say, hey, we need to tell you guys what to do because you guys are doing it wrong when we're doing it wrong too. I can reference studies from Cambridge that show the United States is an oligarchy. I don't think I need to, though, because we've already talked about that so many times. I don't need to say it again. Everybody knows that it's no longer a democracy or a constitutional republic. We still have elections, but as Ron Paul famously said, hey, these elections are just to pacify you guys and make you think that you're having a decision-making process over here, when the reality is the deep state is what's in control. And so we've got a lot of stuff to do in the United States, and I think maybe we should start by, instead of building a big wall, we should build a big mirror and start looking in it and start realizing, hey, you know what? Maybe we're not the land of the free no more. Maybe we're not the shining light on the hill or whatever the hell these guys want to tell us. Maybe it's not the liberty and justice for all, because I'll tell you what, there isn't liberty for all. There isn't justice for all. Going back to the Colin Kaepernick thing, I mean, he highlights a great point, even though it has become a big media frenzy thing. But, he highlights a point. There isn't justice for everybody. Some people get way more justice. Some people get way less justice. I mean, looking at Hillary Clinton, the recent, FBI probe, and they let her off, and the goddamn director said, hey, I'm not saying anyone else that would have done the same thing wouldn't have been prosecuted. In fact, a military veteran who he took pictures of the inside of a submarine for his own personal use, didn't share them with anybody, he was prosecuted. And he tried to invoke the Hillary Clinton alibi, or whatever you want to call it, and say, hey, I did the same thing Hillary Clinton did, except, I was even more responsible about it. That guy's going to jail. You know what I mean? Justice isn't for everybody. It's not here. Freedom is not for everybody here in the United States. We build a here instead of a wall. Look, thank you.
I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.